Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on Superman Lois Season 3. Today we're going to be doing my review / breakdown for episode 5. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future DCTV videos later this year. Okay guys, so I apologize for this video coming out late. Wasn't feeling very well last night, so I decided to watch the show in the morning, and so hopefully this video is going to be as good as usual, but I apologize because I am pretty sick right now. But as you guys know, Superman and Lois is on a hot streak right now. Well, they have been since season 1, and season 3 is no different. Season 3, in the 5 episodes we've had, including last night's episode, have just been absolutely amazing. I have to say, maybe this episode was not a 9 out of 10, it was more like a 8 to 8.5 out of 10, whereas like I don't think too much happened in the episode. Yeah, there was some interesting bits and it's still got the same quality as all the other episodes, but it was just a little bit less about the actual action and more about the kind of relationships that all the characters are going through right now. But let's go ahead and break this episode down chronologically. So at the start of the episode, it reveals that it's been 3 weeks since Candace moved in, so that is a mini time jump. I don't know why they specifically did this, but I guess they just wanted to show some sort of progression without having to basically go too much into the Candace story. And Jordan isn't very happy with her stealing the shower and stuff. He says he's now got a new mortal enemy. So it's a good start to the episode, and General Lane after this gets mad that Lois, as was revealed at the end of last episode, is getting her chemo done at Hobbs Bay, which is Bruno Mannheim's hospital. Now, clearly this is a risk, and at the end of last episode it was revealed that Bruno knows that Lois has signed up to go to that hospital and receive treatment by the people that obviously are working for Bruno Mannheim. And I think what they're doing right now with Bruno Mannheim is actually really interesting, because yes, at times when you see him doing his experiments, when, you know, Clark and everyone aren't aware of them doing it, but we're aware, it's a big contrast to the way that he acts around Lois and the way that he reacts around Superman. Like, he's adamant that he's not the bad guy, and right now I can't say he's the main bad guy, but clearly he's going to step over the line at some point this season. He just hasn't done that yet. And so Bruno with a bad guy at the start of the episode. He's with a guy called Mr. DiStefano, who is known as Deadline. That's what they call him later in the episode. And so he's got powers, and he is being kept alive by them dosing him with whatever they are dosing him with. You know, this is just a continuation of what we saw with Atom Man in a previous episode. And so this guy's got powers. His name is Deadline, and he is supposedly going after something. At first I thought he was going after Lois, but later in the episode you find out what he's truly after. And so let's move on to the next bit. Clark is talking to the chemo patients, and for me this was just such a great part of the episode. Like, I actually was properly emotionally engaged, and it gives Clark a different insight into the way that, you know, chemo can affect people and how it could potentially affect Lois, because Lois is sick. She's got stage 3 breast cancer, and so obviously she's not in a good situation. But with Clark talking to the chemo patients, he's able to get some insight into what it's like. And so while Lois is snooping around, that's when he's talking. So basically Lois is like, okay, this is a perfect opportunity, I'm gonna go sneak around under the guise of being a patient. But we pretty much knew from the start she would get caught fairly quick, because she's Lois Lane. She's trying to expose Bruno Mannheim, and Bruno Mannheim knows this. And so they talk about the pull, the potential want to give in to the disease. And Lois, according to these chemo patients, because she has that drive, she's going to have to keep that drive and work really hard in order to survive and beat the cancer. So again, this just really hits home for a lot of people, and I think a lot of you guys, if you've had family affected by this, or, you know, family that's been ill, it totally hits you. And so yeah, then you get like a kind of offshoot which is teasing some future stuff that Jonathan's going to be doing, because Jonathan is going to potentially be working with the fire department. I guess this is just another reason to give him a different story, plus also get him involved with Kyle. And in terms of Candace, obviously she's been living with the Kents for 3 weeks or so. She's actually going to be moving in to live with her aunt in Topeka. I don't know where that is, but it's over 4 hours away. And so this is clearly a big move, and Jonathan has to choose between doing the fire department and Candace, but they say, we're going to figure it out. And Candace is like, you guys have sacrificed so much for me, you've done so much for me, you have to do this and we'll figure it out. And I think that was definitely the right way to go around what they're doing right now with Candace and Jonathan. And so let's talk about Bruno Mannheim, because Bruno Mannheim walks in on Lois in the hospital, who is snooping around. And so Bruno reveals his research lab, which is state of the art, and this is all apparently, according to him, because of his mum, who had a terrible illness because there was a chemical plant that was hidden within South Metropolis, or the suicide slums. And so everything that Lois sees with, you know, his kind of humanitarian work, I guess you could call it, is an extension of Mannheim's want to save his people, just like he wished he could have saved his mum. And so he will do anything in his power, and absolutely everything, in order to save Lois, because that is his mission, because he thinks he's a good guy and he is running these facilities that are helping people, which is very good. You have to acknowledge that. But if she jeopardizes his work by exposing him and his more shadier dealings, he will stop her, and he says that straight up to her face. And so obviously this is a big deal. We knew that, you know, this side of him would come out at some point, but at the same time, like I said throughout this video, he's not necessarily a bad guy yet, but Lois is determined to expose him for the bad stuff that he's done. And at the end of the scene, he reveals that he's going to send over all the files from Dr. Hook, the files that Lois was looking for basically this whole time, because she suspects she's going to find something there. And even when Lois goes back to Smallville, she reveals that, you know, she's going to look into these files and find something on him, despite him giving that speech. I don't think it's affected her that much. And so we go over to the high school dance, and this is where Sarah meets Natalie, and her crush actually shows up, and that was because of him messaging Sarah. And so yeah, it was kind of nice seeing him show up. It was like a good step for Natalie, and it's interesting what she's going through right now, especially with General Lane and that relationship kind of building up, and then her crush and her potential first boyfriend. It's going to be interesting to see the way that this plays out. In this episode, like I said, there is a lot of focus on those relationships, and you also get the same briefly with Sarah and with her mom, plus also Chrissy and Kyle and what they're doing, plus with the Kent family. They all have their own different things that they're dealing with right now. And so at this point in the party, you know, there are some funny scenes with Kyle as he starts dancing, but Jonathan, like I said earlier, chooses the fire department over Candace, and this has been like a big conundrum that he's been dealing with in, you know, the past hour or so since they got to the party, and he had that talk with Kyle. But also at the same time, you have Sarah, who comforts Mayor Dean's son, who is struggling with the fact that his dad is dead, and yes, he wasn't the best person, but still, he's struggling. Like, his dad has just been killed and he has no answers, and so he's just trying to find someone to blame it on, and he initially blames it on Lana because he is convinced that maybe she has something to do with it. And so let's get into the juicy stuff. As the episode nears its end, there is a breach in the DoD, and Deadline shows up and he kills a bunch of people in the DoD, and he takes the general. I think she's called a general, I don't know her rank. Anyway, Clark hears this and he instantly goes over to the DoD and they fight each other. So it's Deadline versus Superman. Superman at first is getting pretty shredded by him because of his invisibility. That's the only way I can kind of talk about his powers. But he has a kryptonite dagger and he's just stabbing Superman constantly. But Superman's able to get the better of him by the end, but it's too late, as the data that he has been there to actually get has been transferred. And so yes, they might take him into custody, but Deadline is not just working for himself, he's working for Mannheim, he's working for Onomatopoeia, and clearly he values that more than, you know, being safe himself. And if they've actually captured him, maybe they can start analyzing his powers, because clearly, as we were told at the start of the episode, he was given powers the same way that Atom Man was given powers. And so I think it's going to be interesting when they analyze Deadline and his powers, hopefully in the next episode. And so Clark and Lois return to Metropolis, and the whole family has this great scene together where they dance together, as Lois was desperate to go to the dance, but Clark is like, after hearing all the stories from the chemo patients, maybe we should stay behind. And so Lois even admits at one point that she can't go, like she has to sit down and she has to listen to Clark. It's not all her choice, like there is more than one person in this, because Clark is her husband and obviously the whole family is affected by Lois being ill. So I like the way that they ended that story in this episode. It's obviously going to continue, but the final thing in the episode is really interesting, because General Lane says that Deadline was just a distraction, and that the data that he stole was about other top secret facilities that the DoD use around the country or around the city. And so it turns out Intergang have stolen the body of none other than Superman's doppelganger, Bizarro, from last season. He is a very dead looking Bizarro because he was killed, but we all know they can bring people back to life, and if they manage to actually harness Bizarro and actually control him in a way that they are fully in charge of him, that's going to be crazy. We're going to be seeing more Bizarro in this season. I love that twist. It totally came out of nowhere, and you really wondered what type of data were they after. And well, this is exactly it. They were looking for the facilities in order to get Bizarro and harness him for their own plans. So that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. We are uploading a lot of videos, and so if you're new here or you missed some recent videos, go back on my channel and watch them. But for now, you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see red.